and it's completely out of touch and insult the intelligence of the American people. It's a lived experience.
Yeah, because if I had shot and killed a CEO and successfully got away with it, I would totally walk into a McDonald's 5 days later with no face covering or disguise, carrying a backpack with both the murder weapon and a 3-page manifesto describing my motives, and I would totally order my food for there and not to go, and I would sit down and eat it until the cops came. Girl, allow me to put on my little tinfoil hat for a second. I think it's a plant because the government and the police don't want us to believe that we can get away with doing things like that, and the more time that goes by without this guy in custody, the worse it looks on them. And if that really was him, he was begging to get caught for some reason at this point.
There's a lot of things that are wrong with this entire situation. If not wrong, then it's downright weird. Because on one hand, like we saw the video of what we can only call as a professional assassin, shooting the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, in broad daylight, walking away and then proceeding to use a bike to get away from the crime scene. And not only that, the shooter was also smart enough to go through Central Park, where it would be most difficult to find him given the lack of cameras. The shooter planned it so well that he even had NYPD divers searching the lake in Central Park.
Divers with the NYPD back in a pond in Central Park focused on the end closest to Bethesda Fountain. It is tedious work, the pair hoping to find the weapon a gunman used to murder United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson Wednesday morning. After the brazen attack, the masked man made his great escape through Central Park.
He only has 12 minutes in the park. So you got to figure where he went on that bicycle and what happened to that weapon. You really want to recover that weapon.
Detectives have gathered a tremendous amount of video images of the man who at this point has for the most part been able to fly under the radar.
He also made sure to leave their backpack where it could be found, revealing it to be filled with Monopoly money.
Big break came when police located the gunman's backpack near the band shell in Central Park on Friday. There were clothes inside and some actual Monopoly money. It is the second time since this brazen attack that the suspect seems to be sending a message. At the crime scene, detectives found 3 shell casings with the words delay, deny, and depose written on them.
And so now we're supposed to believe that this guy just so happened to visit a McDonald's with his mask down and sit down for an entire meal, even though he knows for a fact that the police were still searching everywhere for him. Something's not clicking here. So it's either he's one of the smartest criminals ever who wanted to get caught, or he's an idiot that got lucky. You know who's lucky though? Any defense attorney in New York whose name is Mario. The headlines would literally just write themselves. All kidding aside though, guys, seriously. Many users online question if they got the right guy. Photos of the shooter released show that he had fairly thin eyebrows. Mangione, on the other hand, he does not. And I'm certain that it would take more than 4 days for eyebrows to grow back as thick as this. There's also the instance with other patrons who were eating at McDonald's the day that Mangione got arrested. One of them were joking that Luigi looked like the New York shooter, joking loud enough for him to actually hear their conversation.
I didn't really see a whole lot. I mean, a group of us are here every day, and one of my friends, and I thought he was kidding. When the shooter, I'm assuming was the shooter who they made the arrest on, came in, he made a comment, but that looks like the shooter from New York. But I thought he was, the group of us, I thought it was more of a joke. And we were kidding about it. But then as it turned out, it was him. And like I said, the employee that thought it was him that I guess started the initial investigation on it. I talked to her later. I said, was I here when he came in? And she goes, yeah. And she goes, actually, you and your friends and all were making a joke almost it's saying, you know, and that's pretty much about it. I mean, he ordered, went to the rear of the store and sat. I passed him whenever I left. I left and went to church, come back, because I heard there was an arrest. I didn't know which McDonald's it was, but it was this, where we were at. I think I looked at the guy, but his back was to me. He did have a backpack, but my friend Mike that said this, I asked him again this morning. I said, were you kidding or not? He said, no, I was serious. He goes, the backpack, the jacket, resembled the one he said the day of the shooting. There was no reaction like from him whenever my friend said that. And
now, something just doesn't match here because we know that the shooter ditched his backpack. Now, witnesses are saying that Mangione magically fetched his alleged backpack from evidence and started bringing it around. Also, why would he wear the same jacket too? And speaking of the backpack, police found everything that they needed in this thing. From a 3D printed pistol and a silencer to a manifesto that contained a cryptic message stating that these parasites had it coming while at the same time expressing ill will towards corporate America. Yet Mangione's attorney is saying that there is no evidence here that would make Mangione plead guilty.
So your client had an opportunity to say you got the wrong guy, never did. He apologizes in his manifesto for the pain he has caused. He gave voice to his motivation today in front of the cameras. And yet, am I correct that you believe you don't think he did it?
Well, Chris, one thing I always liked about watching you is you're a lawyer, okay? So I don't know if you've done much criminal work or not, but my client hasn't faced any actual criminal charges from New York yet. So he hasn't had an opportunity to make any plea. My anticipation is going to be when, and if that happens, he's going to plead not guilty. I mean, we've seen no evidence. We've seen nothing. And I was reminding people today about, you talk about America a little bit and what some wonderful things about this country, and particularly in the criminal justice system, and that's the presumption of innocence. And I don't want people to jump to, these prejudgment things, because nobody would ever want that if they were accused or one of their loved ones were accused. And as the big hearing today, I haven't seen any evidence yet. I don't even know if this is him or whatever. So we're going to test those waters and give the government a chance to bring some evidence forward.
There are others that are skeptical of the publicity that this crime has attracted, asking whether the same treatment will be done for average Americans who are possibly being killed by criminals out on the streets, compared to, of course, an incredibly rich CEO of corporate America. Which also reminds me that Mangione and his family are also very well off, which kind of makes this entire case that much more mysterious. But here's the kicker in all of this. If Mangione is not the shooter, then the actual assassin is probably watching all of this laughing to himself. So do you guys think that he did it, or is somebody else to blame for this assassination? Now, speaking of laughing, mainstream liberal media just got the first interview of President-elect Donald Trump after winning in this year's presidential election. All right, let's jump back in. All right, so yeah, let's talk about the strong person of interest that they nabbed in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, because it turns out he's an anti-capitalist Ivy League graduate who liked online quotes from Unabomber Ted Krasinski, and even said in his own manifesto that these parasites had it coming. The internet is so divided on this one, and honestly, I understand why a lot of people are having a hard time feeling sad about the CEO being killed. But you know the type of stories that I hear all the time from the people around me, from our own comments, a lot of homeless people share the same story. They suddenly had a debilitating illness, which caused them to go bankrupt or even get addicted to drugs. But then you have these health insurance companies who you're paying for, but they're profiting from people not getting the health care that they need and deserve. And so this is the kind of thing that Trump and RFK Jr. are against, right? Because we all know someone who suffered from this anti-working class mentality. Where's the justice for our people? You know what I mean? And again, I'm not for violence. Violence should never be the answer. But what happened to United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson? My personal take, I'm not sure if it's a question about morality or if it's more like cause and effect. Basically, this is what happens when people aren't being heard. Trump and RFK Jr. have been saying it the whole time. The system is not working, because this is where the government was supposed to step in, but they didn't. And millions of Americans were left with nowhere to turn. So again, I'm not comfortable at all with the violence that was used to start this conversation. But at the same time, this kind of dialogue that started in our society is something that probably should have started a long time ago. Does that make sense to you guys? I don't know. That's just my take, of course. Now, to the facts of the story. The tech whiz Luigi Mangione, 26 years old, originally from Townsend, Maryland, apparently hated the medical community because of how it treated his sick relative. So far, he actually has been charged in the slang and was also taken into custody while eating at McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. He was a former prep school valedictorian and was caught with a ghost gun that uses 9mm bullets, a silencer, a U.S. passport, 4 fake IDs with names used during the killer's particular stint in New York City and the manifesto. Now, apparently those ghost guns people can print on 3D printers. Scary stuff. Now, as for Luigi's manifesto, it was 2.5 handwritten pages that were essentially quotes that he had gotten from Ted Kaczynski, the infamous Unabomber who terrorized the country for nearly 2 decades by mailing deadly bombs before he was nabbed in 1996. Now, one quote in particular: imagine a society that subjects people to conditions that make them terribly unhappy and then gives them the drugs to take away their unhappiness. Now, honestly, I would agree if the people this came from weren't so disturbing. But for Mangione, the killing of the United Healthcare CEO was more personal than anything else, it appears. Online obituaries show how he lost a grandmother in 2013 and a grandfather in 2017. His LinkedIn page indicates that he once worked in an assisted living facility for the elderly for a few months in 2014 while he was still in high school. So you can kind of imagine the kind of health insurance horror stories that he was exposed to at a very young age. Add to the fact that Mangione also subscribed to the anti-capitalist and climate change causes based on his online activity found by authorities. He even reposted a Wall Street Journal article on Facebook in 2019 titled "Obstacle to Deficit Cutting: A Nation on Entitlements." Yeah, definitely an Ivy Leaguer who basically got fed up with a corrupt system and decided to take matters into his own hands. You know what I mean? But yeah, guys, definitely let me know what you guys think about this one. Have you guys been feeling that there's something wrong with our country for a while now? Do you feel like Trump winning is the first step to making America great and healthy again? Drop a quick yes or no in the comments down below. Let's make a conversation out of it.
Well, as a guy who used to wear Jacquard, right, if you remember that in Jersey back in the 90s, Carly, like that was how I got my wife. I wore the Jacquard cologne. The Trump cologne should be very interesting. Yeah, no, it's not actually. But look, I did not have Dr. Jill Biden leaving her husband Joe Biden for Doug Emhoff, only to leave him for Donald Trump. I mean, who would think that the guy they called Hitler would be flirted with in this way? I mean, I wish my wife would look at me that way again. It's the meme of the century, and the fact that Jill Biden wore MAGA red on Election Day before she voted. Maybe that was not an accident. I don't know. Just throwing it out there, Carly.
Hey, I still remember Joe Rogan calling it the Bidens voted for Trump. And honestly, it's pretty easy to understand why. Trump was very friendly with Jill Biden because, she's not one of the jerks that pushed her husband out of the candidacy. You know what I mean? Well, what can I say, guys? I mean, success attracts the right kind of people. Case in point, Trump just tapped his longtime lawyer, Alina Habba, as special counselor to the president.
Saying that senior advisor and former personal lawyer Alina Habba is going to be his counselor to the president. A few State Department appointments as well. Michael Anton, who was in the first administration, will be his director of policy planning at the State Department.
And if you guys want proof just how effective Alina Habba is, here's her going after the politicized Justice Department.
Good afternoon. I've done this one too many times, actually too many times for the last 3.5 years while President Trump has been trying to fight to get this country back. And I want to speak to the American women, and I want to speak to the people that need to get out and vote on November 5th. I have sat with President Trump for years now, while he has been targeted with lies and with judges, AGs, and DAs who have specifically run in this city and others on getting Trump. The Trump administration will fix this problem. We will stop Kamala Harris's regime, because she was there, let's not forget that, and she still is, of using officials from the White House, putting them in DA's offices, in AG's offices, and attacking your political opponent. And this country deserves better than this. We do. We should not be sitting here at a press conference talking about this. We did this in 2016, and every woman had no reports. They come out when it's election time. And as a woman who has stood with President Trump, who has spent extensive time with President Trump and with his beautiful family, I will tell you, that is not President Trump. And I completely am disgusted by what I have seen happen to this person, his family, and the Trump organization that we stand in right now.
Remember when billionaire Mark Cuban said President-elect Trump is never seen around strong, intelligent women? And most importantly, qualified women to prove Cuban otherwise. Now, me personally, I'm still waiting for Trump to nominate Dan Bongino to clean up the Secret Service. What do you guys think about that? Dan Bongino leading the Secret Service? And speaking of security, they just arrested a strong person of interest in the shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Check this out.
We've been listening to a news conference including the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, the NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, and we're just listening to a question and answer session with the NYPD's Chief of Detectives, Joseph Kinney, after the NYPD has identified a person of interest in the killing of the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson days ago, identifying Luigi Mangione, a 26-year-old born and raised in Maryland, according to authorities, with no prior arrest record, has been taken into custody in Altoona, Pennsylvania, where, according to the NYPD, he will be facing gun charges. And the NYPD says they will be working with the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, on when this person of interest may be brought to New York to face additional charges there. We also learned, Joe, that the suspect, Luigi Mangione, person of interest was in possession of a ghost gun with the capability of firing a 9mm round when he was taken into custody at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania earlier today.
Yeah, pretty remarkable, capable of firing a 9mm round, something that could be created on a 3D printer, something that has concerned authorities for a long time. And here we are again talking about this. His last address, Honolulu, even though he is from Towson, Maryland, not that far outside of the nation's capital here, this young man with stories we just heard, pretty remarkable, Kaylee, about the effective use of drones combined with canine units and, of course, the willingness of a McDonald's employee.
Now, remember, guys, let's face it, what they found out about Luigi Mangione so far deserves its own video. I mean, they actually found that he left a positive review for the Unabomber's manifesto online earlier this year and praised the killer of a political revolutionary. This was on Goodreads, and the review was for Ted Kaczynski's manifesto. Some of the standout lines for me were, peaceful protest has gotten us absolutely nowhere. When all other forms of communication fail, violence is necessary to survive. These companies don't care about you or your kids or your grandkids. They have zero qualms about burning down the planet for a buck. And we're animals just like everything else on the planet, except we've forgotten the law of the jungle and bend over for our overlords when any other animal would recognize the threat and fight to the death for their survival. I mean, it definitely does sound like a guy who was planning to take matters into his own hands. But hey, just to be clear, guys, I do not endorse violence here on our channel. At the same time, I also do recognize some of the points that he's making here, like how we've been under the thumb of elites for far too long, and we've definitely got to band together to do something about it. November 5th was a huge step toward making America great again. And honestly, guys, I think Dr. Joe Biden and President Joe Biden had a hand in helping us. I mean, there's definitely a reason for this viral photo of Trump and Joe Biden with the First Lady seemingly smiling at him at the reopening ceremony of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Trump sat between French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife, Brigitte Macron, during the ceremony, which was also attended by Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and Britain's Prince William. So the First Lady and her daughter, Ashley, were seated in the same row as Trump. President Biden wasn't there. The White House said that it was a scheduling conflict, but I don't know, guys. They may already be sunsetting him back to fast-track Donald Trump's inauguration. But yeah, First Lady Jill Biden was definitely there and present for the viral moment with Trump. It wasn't long ago either that Jill Biden blew up the internet when she was photographed wearing a red pantsuit to cast her ballot the day of the election, you guys. Republican much? As conservative commentator Jim Hansen said, she hasn't gotten over the coup that removed her husband. So yeah, that was a Trump vote right there, y'all. I mean, just compare this warmth and affection for Trump to that other Jill Biden viral moment with Kamala Harris not too long ago. They called it an icy reception at Arlington National Cemetery's Tomb of the Unknown Soldier during a remembrance ceremony on Veterans Day. As Harris took her seat for the wreath-laying ceremony, Biden appeared to look straight ahead through dark sunglasses. Popular X-account End Wokeness said Jill Biden refused to even look at Kamala Harris. Others have commented on this too. Conservative author David Harris Jr., for one, has suggested that there seems to be a rift within the party after Kamala Harris's blowout loss to Trump. Then again, there's always been a rift within the Democratic Party as they just can't seem to get it together whether they win or lose. You know what I mean? But yeah, genuine sweet moment between First Lady Jill Biden and President-elect Donald Trump here. Now, as for Trump's fragrance line, 2 are already sold out according to the website. I mean, what can I say? The man knows how to capitalize on a moment. And what a moment this was. And in the city of love, no less. People have described it as a rare cross-party camaraderie in Paris, X user AJ Huber says, Jill Biden looks like she's in love with the boss Trump. 100% confirmed that she voted for Trump. So what do you guys think? Did the Bidens really vote for Trump? Drop a quick yes or no in the comments down below. Hit the like button to show your support. And just in case you haven't already, I highly recommend subscribing to the channel, turning on that notification bell. You guys all set? An interview that really didn't go their way as Trump absolutely dominated the conversation with the truth. Now, I covered this in a previous live stream, guys, that I hope you guys check out after this one. As always, thanks for hitting the like button and subscribing. We'll see you guys next time.